Thanks for joining me this morning, Dean. Can you introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about your involvement with the creative arts?
A little bit about myself. My name's Dean James Moore. I'm a father to an 18-year-old daughter. I do stand-up comedy as and when I have a full-time job as a neighbourhood safety warden. Comedy was more or less quite regular before COVID happened. I've got a dog. I'm friends with Pat O'Banton. I've lived in Middlesbrough all my life. I'm just a happy-go-lucky chap, and I'm friends with the goose that looks like Vince Clarke.
Yeah, I've seen your work with geese. So how did you get into being like a comedy writer and a comedian, and you've made short films? I know you've recently got commissioned. Is that right?
Yeah, that was well. I'll start from like how I got into comedy. Was I was always a massive comedy fan, so I used to go to Middlesbrough Town Hall and watch MCs like Jason Cook, watch people do the shows like Ross Noble, who I met, and he's amazing, by the way. And I met a comedian who I seen on stage who blew me away called Mandy Knight, she's my favourite comedian, like bar none. She's incredible, this lady, Mandy Knight. She's currently on tour, socially distanced in Australia. Myself, I'm not like at that level. I don't make money out of comedy. I'm not a professional comedian, as and when I'm a little bit surreal. And the thing that got commissioned, or that came about, was I got invited to base camp by Tees Valley commission. It's just the Tees Valley group, and Roxy McKenna invited me. That's the one. Yeah, Tees Valley Screen even. Great bunch of people, Lisa Laws, and basically I just started chatting. I didn't even go to the script as it goes. They all turned up with these scripts, and it was all professional, and I felt way out of my depth. And I just started speaking about like Albert Park, and I was the tree that looks like Tina Turner. Quite surreal stuff, which I like. And they went, we'll just give them a camera crew. It was great. So we just went on the park. I just finished the night shift. I went to see some geese. So I know another geese over there. There's a goose that looks like Vince Clarke. Everyone knows the goose. He's even on a wall in Essex Street in TS1. That happened this year. And when I asked the artist if I could have my goose on the wall, he said, yeah. It was probably the best feeling ever. It was incredible. But yeah, everything happens kind of like, it just happens. It's not like I've never planned to be a comedian. I never planned to kind of do it. It just all kind of happens. So it's lovely when it happens. I mean, you have like many bad gigs when you first start off, but then you feed off the really good ones. That keeps you going, really. Yeah, I'm just happy-go-lucky, really. Always positive, which is annoying to some people.
Yeah, I tend to annoy people that way. I kind of I lost all faith in the universe the other night for about an hour, and I was like, "Oh God, you finally managed to suck out all my light." But then it was like, no, something good. And I'm like, back up, here we go again. Yeah, it certainly helps. This year it's been very useful to be of a positive frame of mind. So, do you? Are you the first sort of member of your family that's been afflicted with comedy? Do your forebears, are you all just kind of like witty people? Are you the first one that's kind of aspired to make a kind of formal bid for being a comedian?
I suppose so. I don't think anyone's ever really aspired. I mean, my girlfriend's really funny, but obviously it's very private. She couldn't think nothing worse than stand on the stage. My daughter's really funny, but again, she's the same, very reserved, where kind of I find it a bit more comfortable standing on stage and speaking in a room full of strangers than being at home at the dinner table having a family meal. I find that really intense, where the stage thing I find a little bit easier, even though you still get nervous. For some reason, I find that more comfortable, because all you've got to do is try and make people laugh, which doesn't happen. I find the family meal situation really intense, where you might find that really easy. I find it really incredibly intense.
Really interesting. I know like quite a few comedians and performers in general feel that way. They could be really, really kind of shy and reserved off stage, and as soon as they're on there, something happens. And well, for me, like I kind of have multiple personalities that I've been trained to use to my best ability, and I would say that you're kind of snapping into a different part of yourself, perhaps, once you get out on stage.
That runs true, because when you first, I mean, I haven't done that many gigs actually in the time I've been doing comedy, but you know, like you do have a lot of bad ones when you first start because you're trying to find your own voice type thing and find your style. Where I'm just naturally like a little bit bizarre and surreal. I like the silly stuff which some people don't find funny, some people do. But I can normally tell when I arrive at a gig by the state of how it, like, if I turn up and I just feel a little bit euphoric, and normally I know no matter what I say, it's going to really work because I'm just kind of it's like an out of body, it's kind of, you're floating about and you're in the moment. Where if you try and do it where it's like a little bit of a routine and it's kind of, oh, I didn't get a laugh there, I'm not in the room, it's kind of a bit robotic and that never works. So the best advice I was given was just be yourself how you are off stage and try and maybe like amplify it slightly. And normally that works. I'm a little bit quirky, I would think, a bit odd. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think is, you know, because you're kind of exuberant and, you know, you're just kind of just full of a bit of life that you wouldn't, you know, you don't need to have people in hysterics the whole time. People would just be engaged sort of by watching you go in full flow and just enjoying yourself up there. And I think that's another thing that, you know, in the creative arts, if somebody's doing something that they clearly are really, really enjoying themselves, most of the time, you're going to get swept up in that.
Yeah, that's very true. It's kind of in the moment, you've had a hard week at work, you want to unwind and laugh, and everyone's there together. Everyone in the room's together. So they're the best gigs when everyone's feeling it together. Like if someone coughs or someone farts, the room laughs because you're there in the moment rather than it being a bit routine.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of feel like this, particularly when I'm doing my radio shows, really go into that kind of zone that if I'm consciously presenting a radio show and talking to people, it's kind of, I don't know, it's becoming conscious of it ruins the magic. It's like if I'm just completely absorbed in my guests and what they got to say, then that's when it really works because it's like, yeah, we go off on a journey together.
The funniest things always just catch you off guard. They just happen in the moment, off guard. You could be doing like you do your radio show, and the interview's kind of all of a sudden it just takes a turn for somewhere else, and you think, wow, that was incredible. Then you've got 5 minutes of like incredible stuff out of nowhere. It just happens because you might say something or they might, and it's just like, good Lord, sorry Jesus.
So you say you've had a few gigs. Is it generally local places that you've played at?
I'm not committed. So I've done like the Saltburn gig, the big one in Saltburn for 10 Feet Tall. I've been to whole Manchester. I've never gigged in London. Scotland I've gigged. They went really well there. I've gigged pretty much Hull's the furthest I've probably, no, Manchester, Liverpool kind of areas the furthest I've been. But around locally, yeah, like kind of Saltburn, Middlesbrough, some last minute gigs at the Ark, the Georgian Theatre. But funnily enough, my best gig by a long shot was, how I said my favourite comedian was Mandy Knight. Well, she was emceeing at Saltburn for 10 Feet Tall, and it's a really big room, great crowd. And I went with my girlfriend to watch Mandy because we're massive fans, and she's also a good friend now. And I went outside for some fresh air because it was really warm in the interval. And they were panicking because the middle act never turned up. So I just said, oh, look, if you want, I can go on the stage and do 10, 15 minutes, which I did. And it was kind of more pressure because Mandy was on and she's kind of like my hero. So it made it worse. Luckily, it went really well. I got clapped off and she came back out. We hugged, we embraced. It was like, it took me 3 days to come back. It was more so because she was there in front of my partner. It was amazing. And it was a last minute thing. And it was like, wow.
Oh, that's terrific. Yeah, amazing being able to perform in front of your own hero and have the balls really to just go up and do that with no preparation, no notice. Loving it. Yeah.
It was so scary. I just got by my nerves, and kind of the nerves, luckily, on that night kind of helped. Just the pace of it.
Yeah. I suppose so. It's kind of a, you know.
And what makes it easy, because Mandy was emceeing, she knows to set the room up perfectly. So by the time you come on, everyone's laughing anyway. Everyone's laughing, the room's up because she's a brilliant MC. So it's kind of makes it easier for me in the middle, which is the sweet spot, but it just makes it miles easier.
Brilliant. So obviously lockdown's had a big effect in terms of, you know, all the clubs being closed. Have you found that you've been able to do you work on material? Like, I mean, what is your process? Do you just like get up there and draw on your life events and
it's mostly life events, but bizarre stories. For example, like I'm really good. This is going to sound bizarre. I'm really good friends with a singer called Pat O'Banton. He sang "Baby Come Back." So like my life's quite bizarre. I spend most of my time with geese and swans. So kind of I've got a lot of stories in there. I'm 41. I know I moisturise. I used to be a Queen's Guardsman, so I've got loads of stories. So kind of what I've learned to do is you'll have a story that's quite quirky and funny or a bit bizarre, but did happen, and then just add bits on, and then over time, with the lockdown as well, loads of things happen. For example, at work where you think, oh, that's really funny. I'll mention this, or I'll mention kind of this spell check error on my phone, what I sent to somebody that was embarrassing. So kind of, I wouldn't say write down notes, just bullet points and ideas which you can work on type thing. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I'm
I do talk a lot, sorry.
No, it was supposed to be, it's what we're doing here. I just think, because I'm the same. I've never really sort of looked at the arts as a full-time job. It's kind of like at least half my work. And I just say, I put far more time into the arts than I do anything else. I like going about my daily business because that is all source material. It's like as a writer, I think it's the same. Whether you're writing comedy, whatever you're writing, just paying attention to everything as you go along, and just realizing that there's all these little gems hanging there, ready for you to pluck them and integrate them into your work. I think it's a great way to go about things. And I mean, would you ever aspire to make it a full-time job, or you're happy in the way that you are now, just using it as an outlet?
If it happened, it'd be lovely, but it's not something I'm not desperate. But if it came along, it'd be amazing. But don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people out there who probably got a lot more talent. But I would like to think I'm pretty unique in the way that I go about it. But yeah, it would be good. But if it didn't happen, I'm quite happy with the way my life is at the moment. I've got a job. My daughter's ready to go to university. I've got a long-term girlfriend. So kind of, I don't kind of chase it, but it would be nice. But
yeah,
it wouldn't be work.
The thing these days, it's like, I mean, obviously it's talent and how much you put yourself out there, but there's so much work that you have to do in social media and stuff like that these days. It's like, it's not just like you just have to really, really go at it and sort of, make yourself so publicly available. I mean, particularly I'm thinking of writers here, maybe more than comedians, but it does seem like, it's a hell of a slog. It doesn't kind of.
If you're going to be like realistic about, if you look at like some incredible comedians, musicians, artists who kind of haven't, let's say, they're desperate to make it, but they haven't, they kind of, you get the idea of what's going on. So it's kind of, I mean, you see some people who are really talented and they're just happy to just do the weekend gigs. I mean, you see some bands who aren't that great, they aren't great. And there's some amazing bands in the Northeast, and you think, wow, like, look at the difference in these bands, and they're not making it. So you kind of think, look, let's be real. It's kind of one of them where if it happens, it's lovely. I mean, some of the most amazing bands have just came out by accident, and comedians where they've been at the right gig at the right time, at the right day. It's just, as long as you're happy doing what you're doing, I don't think there's any kind of desire to. Being happy is the key. I mean, you could be gigging 3-4 weekends, 3 weekends in a month, earning good money, but if then the home life's not as good or you're not as happy, kind of, is it worth it really? There's got to be a balance.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think happiness is the focus for me as well.
That was a very adult answer.
Well, yeah, we've both been really great. I'm proud.
I'm gonna go and put the meat to the frost now, like an adult.
All right. Well, it's been lovely speaking to you, Dean. And
no, I was joking.
I am. Well.
Oh,
we've done 13 minutes. You can tell me more if you want. I'm not going to cut you off. You're in flow.
I was only joking there. Yeah. Do you want some little stories?
Go on. Yeah. Let's have some actual comedy. Go on.
So then, right. As you know, I'm friends with Pat O'Banton, and last year he was coming to Middlesbrough to do a gig at base camp and stay with me and my family for 3 days, which he did with his band. And before he came, it was the gestation period for the swans over in Albert Park. And what I do is when they lay the eggs, I've known these swans for about 6 or 7 years, and I'll climb over the wall and I'll pull some twigs off. And there's a good bond between me and the swans, and I'll pass them the twigs and they'll build a nest, and it goes on for a while. What happened this day was on a morning, there's a path where dog walkers go, but you've got to climb the wall to get the grass and the leaves and the twigs. So I'm in black, in these bushes, right in, pulling these twigs up, and the dog walker walks past me and looks over the wall and goes to me, "What are you doing in there?" Now, bear in mind, I had a handful of twigs in my left hand and right hand, and I'm really honest, I went, "What's it look like I'm doing?" "I'm helping a swan build a nest." Right. So he walked off, right, thinking I was crackers. I've climbed the wall, I've give the swan me twigs and stuff, and he's came back and he went, "You're not right." I was like, "What you on about, mate? I am actually, look, I'm helping the swan build a nest." And I think to him, "Do you like Pat O'Banton? I can get you free tickets to a gig." And he just thought I was insane and walked away, shaking his head. But both things were true. Mm-hmm. And from that gig at base camp, there was like an after party, but obviously it was just a section of Tiny, which is a gay nightclub in Middlesbrough, sectioned off. Now, there was no bar tab because I'm not rich, but they were like kind of getting drinks and putting them on, saying, "Oh, Dean's paying for them," and I wasn't, because I don't drink, I wasn't there. So early hours of the morning, I had to go meet a drag queen, right, in the middle of Middlesbrough town centre, in my flip-flops and shorts to pay off a bar tab, yeah? Now, I'm thinking, if I get pulled by the police with a drag queen, how do you explain this whole scenario? What are you doing? Well, you're not going to believe this, but you're the singer, Pat O'Banton. His band have run up a bar tab, and I'm here to meet the drag queen to pay it off. It's like, whoa. It's, and then the Goose actually made it onto Radio 1. I can send you the video of what happened was. 2 years, the big weekend. Big weekend was in Middlesbrough. But I was doing like a show for Green Up North on the BBC. So they use the studios. So when you go in, and the big weekend was on, the DJs were actually using the BBC T studios to do their shows. As I'm coming out, I've seen Greg James on the last day. So I've just been right in his face. I'm, Greg, are you shooting off? Do you not fancy coming to Albert Park to see a goose that looks like Vince Clarke? Because the goose does look like Vince Clarke. And he mentioned it on the morning's breakfast show. My phone was going crazy. So everyone now, there's visitors comes to Albert Park to see this goose that looks like Vince Clarke. Now he's on a wall, and I'm getting a T-shirt with him on. It's like the goose is well known, and people come and see the goose. It's amazing, man. And I'm going to decorate his island for Christmas.
You know, when we're out and about, I'm gonna have to get down to Albert Park and interview Vince the Goose.
Yeah, he's beauty. He's a beauty, and that's where the comment. So you've seen the comedy short video that we made with Is it TFI? How that came about was, I used to do a lot of running on the moors and stuff with my daughter on my training group and get full of mud. So I thought, wow, just go to the car wash, stand there, and rather than get the dirty shoes in the house, jet wash your stuff, get them a jet washer for £2. And that's how it all evolved from there, like jet washing, your pots and pans. And then obviously the idea evolved where another one was where when you walk in the park, if you've got a pet mole kind of thing, one of the many benefits of having a pet mole is when he dies, you haven't got to bury him. But that never made the final cut. But there was loads of stuff where it was kind of like, hang on, this is a good idea. So if you go in the gym, there's the sauna and the steam room in the gym. You can't go in the sauna or steam room and actually shave because it's unhygienic. But I do like value for money. And again, this never made the cut. But if you want value for money in the sauna or steam room on a Sunday, when you go in with your shorts and towel, take all your broccoli and carrots and potatoes, and when you come out, you've got your dinner ready. That's good value, isn't it? Yes, good value.
That's saving time and money.
Exactly. And
Loving
what else?
It.
Yeah. I could be here all day talking, by the way. I mean, I've seen a man at my job, like a street warden type thing, and I've seen a man at work. He was actually out walking a royal python. He had a royal python around his neck. He gives it an hour's exercise every day. Imagine coming across this. What I shouldn't have said was, in my uniform, can I ever go your snake? I actually said it and realised that I shouldn't have. That sounds so wrong. But it depends how your mind works, I suppose. But sitting a middle-aged man, can I ever go your snake? Like, what? Like, it's yeah.
Yeah, he'd probably forgotten it was there.
Probably, but it was huge. But it doesn't matter. I'm making this worse.
Oh, brilliant. Well, we're come on, one last story, because we've done double
I
time.
I wrote a solo show, and again, I like bizarre titles. So my solo show was called Willie Thorne Looks Like Tosh from the Bill. Both of them have died. Willie Thorne died recently, leukemia, which is it's tragic. And Kevin Lloyd, who played Tosh from the Bill, he died. So kind of, I'm not sure if I can use that title anymore. And it's quite selfish to say that, but I don't know. And the reason I called my show Willie Thorne Looks Like Tosh from the Bill is because, like, he does. No other reason, but he does. He actually does.
Yeah. Well, that was a little bit unfortunate of them. We'll have to.
Yeah. But yeah, but I do love my area where I'm from. I love Middlesbrough. I'm from North Thornby. I love that. It's my home. I would never leave. I love it. And what's really funny is as well, like, there's a page for the area, and it's I love North Thornby, but like, it's the nickname for North Thornby is Doggy. So what's really funny is 2 years ago we started like a hashtag, but I didn't really think it through. So you had like loads of old women. It's called I Love Doggy. It was meant well, but it looks so bad. Honestly, it looks so. I'm laughing. Sorry, I shouldn't be laughing at myself.
I know, laughing at your own jokes. Well, there's no point telling them if they're not funny to yourself, is there? Right. Well, it's been a lovely way to round off a morning, and
right, no worries.
Yeah, let's hope we can all have a big party down the Orcs when all this is over, and we'll get you up.
Super. You're more than welcome to come to a show, or vice versa. If you want to come out when this is all back to normal, I'll give you some free tickets for your friends. I'm not saying it's worth any money, by the way, but if you want to come along, you're more than welcome.
Oh, that's really kind. We'll pay our way. I think it's normally a door price ain't much more than a drink, and I think we should pay it and pay it gladly.
Super.
So,
right.
Lovely to meet you, and see you in the real world sometime.
Bye. That's right.
Leave it.